It's natural to be depressed sometimes. It's natural to be unhappy. But when it gets to the point where you start to doubt truth itself, then there's a serious problem. I remember I had a bit of a moment like that when I was about 15. I remember I was going through a particular rough patch around exams, typical kind of stresses, and I was looking into the corner of my room while sitting on my bed. And for a moment I comprehended that maybe life was entirely meaningless. Maybe there is no truth or false. Now, this led to probably some of the most miserable months of my life, but thankfully, by the time I'd turned 16, I think I'd overcome that entirely. But it was an unpleasant moment in my life, and when I look back, it was actually really, really stupid. Now, I don't think I'd have gotten out of that quite as quickly if I wasn't so utterly obsessed with reading and studying the world. Because eventually, I started to notice yet again that there were patterns in the world, and there were types of things, and that there was a coherent logic to the world. And so we'll use that to address this question. Now, I can think of two phrases which embody nihilism in a complete way. Nothing is true, or there is no truth or false in the world. Now, both of those statements are definitive declarations of truth, so they're contradictory and they can't exist. So nihilism is irrational, but I realise that this isn't the problem that most of us face. The real reason why we crack and we become nihilists is because we suffer so intensely and we can't see any meaning in our suffering. We can't look into the world and say, well, I've suffered this horrific injury. Why? Why has this happened to me? Why have I lost my arm in this car accident? Why is this child stillborn? Why did my friend get mauled to death by an animal? Why did these things happen? Where is the good in these things? Because you're obviously taken up by your emotions, as much as we as men don't want to admit it. We're taken up by our emotions and we can't think so clearly. So in order to do this, we need to create a system to address it, because we know from the logic I just gave that this is an impossible state of affairs. And frankly, our emotions, we know, can be discordant with truth. So we need a rational system to reconcile the existence of these horrific events. And to do this, I'll give you a story. I worked in the roughest nightclub in my town for a single shift, and I was so utterly revolted by what I saw, I never came back again, and I never even collected my pay. Now, you don't normally notice this when you're in a club, because you're with your friends and you're drunk, but I was sober and I was there for 8 hours, from about 8 PM until 6 AM the next morning. So I saw a lot of crazy things. I saw breakups, I saw women crying. In fact, my friend was working in the toilets, and the toilets exploded as he was cleaning them because somebody had shoved the cups down the U-bend, and condoms and tampons exploded all over the room, and he had to clean it up for minimum wage. The worst thing I saw, though, was a woman trying to buy drinks for 6 guys, and the guys just feeling her up while she was taking the drinks off of me. And obviously there wasn't much I could do, because, there's 6 guys there, and the bouncers are outside. The one memory that sticks out to me, though, is when this guy, about 18, 19, about my age at the time, came up to the bar, and he starts crying, and he goes, "I was only nasty to the girls because I thought that would make them want me." And I'm sitting there consoling him, because he's obviously had a bit of a low IQ attempt at PUA techniques through the alcohol. It was probably one of the worst experiences of my entire life, looking back on it. And that's including things like family illness, family death, and all of that, because although those things are far more impactful on your life, this was a lot more viscerally disgusting and troubling. So that was an incredibly horrific and negative experience in my life. Probably one of the worst, as I said. But how did I bring good out of it? And how can I say hand over heart that I was blessed to experience it? Well, because over the course of that 10 hours, I had a lesson in morality. I saw that and I learnt. I saw and I learnt that these places were bad and that these behaviours were bad in a obvious experiential way. You start to notice little groups of people and how they develop over the course of a night based on various actions, and you see in real time the value of staying away from sexual immorality. You see, when you are there, the benefits of remaining sober and staying away from being drunk. You see these things portrayed in such a manner that no one can really deny their truth. On top of that, I definitely grew in virtue that night. Because before, I was a unpleasant and angry person, I think. I mean, I've always had this kind of irascibility in my behaviour. But that night I realised something that I'd never seen before. That mercy was an incredibly beautiful virtue. Because before that, I just never really considered that I could have a positive influence on people's lives. I kind of considered myself not really present for some reason. But after I talked to that guy, and after reflecting on that man's suffering and how I alleviated it through my comfort, through providing him with a little bit of reassurance that I understood what he was doing, well, after that I realised, well, mercy has a benefit, because I could have just called him a degenerate, because he was acting like a degenerate. But instead, by giving him a sense of mercy and that you know that you fucked up, but that's okay, we all learn. Through doing that, I learned that I was neglecting a very important part of myself as a man. So the benefit to you when you experience these profoundly negative experiences is that you learn from them. And not only that, when these things happen, they always bring about some good. Like this lady who was being felt up by the 6 guys, she probably learned not to do that again. And probably reformed her act. You often swing back and you do the exact opposite after horrendous experiences. I made that guy feel better, even if it was for just a few minutes. God is always bringing about bad things such that greater goods can come about. In fact, semi-tangential to this, if you acknowledge the laws of logic that I used at the beginning of this video, and you also acknowledge the existence of things and of causation, you can come to the conclusion very easily that there is an omnibenevolent, omnipresent God who loves you. And I'll link the proof to this in the description, if you wish. But that's for another video if you guys want to hear it. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's that the benefit of these horrific experiences is that they overcome nihilism because you can see the wisdom in them everywhere. And the way to overcome nihilism is to act within the world and to read. As I've said before, all books are a shorthand experience. So read and act and you will overcome your nihilism. And that's all that's necessary for you to do. You just need to do things. I aim, in a way, to impart this on my channel here. I'm trying to drop atomic white pills because there's so many of them that people ignore. So, I hope you found this useful, guys. I'll see you later, and goodbye. A very big thank you to those on the list here. These are subscribers to the Renaissance Man program who get audiobooks and controversial videos every week for $5 a month. There's already quite a lot of content there, so if you check it out in the description, you won't be missing out. Thank you.